Alright, so we back with another video. Today we gonna be predicting the Prem. Again, some big transfers have happened. We've seen the first, I guess, real game for a couple teams. When you think about the UEFA Cup, Super Cup for PSG, and I think Aston Villa, that was a very good game in my opinion. And then you also seen Arsenal play against City. Now I won't think too much of the Super Cup because last year, if you remember, Spurs probably should have beat PSG in that. And Spurs go on. People low-key forget Spurs actually had a pretty good start to the season last year. Like, they had that. Then they go and beat City in the league. They were actually pretty good. But then the injuries hit and it shattered fast. Like, it got bad fast. That's what happened with Spurs. But today we're going to be predicting the Prem. I'm not even going to do too much of an intro. Just make sure to like, subscribe. Let's get straight to it. First team. We're going to rank these in ABC order. Last time we just ranked them in order of what placement I think they're going to get. Today we're going to rank them ABC order. Bournemouth. Now, I'm going to keep the beam. They have to replace Areola. Now, if you think about it in this perspective, I thought last year they wouldn't be that great even though they had Areola. But honestly, wasn't as familiar with him as I am now. I'll say this. Their recruitment is very good. I will say that. Krupi being out is kind of big for them. But is it? I really don't know. They're very good with the recruitment. Now, I will say this. The dude they got from Elche, I wanted him to go to Barca. Mid-season point last year. By the time we got to like around the end of the season, I was kind of over that. But he have a lot of potential. He's good size. I think he could low-key fit in the Prem. I don't know if he's the pace and power that people want in the Prem, but he's definitely technical, good size on him. I think he's going to surprise some people. I think that could be a guy that people will be wanting to buy come this time next year. And you got him, Krupi, and Ryan. Now, I'll be honest. Ryan is the guy in that three I'm not that high on as everybody else. But we'll see what this manager got going on. I've heard that he has a good, I guess, resume. But for now, I'm going to say Bournemouth is 8-14. I'm pretty sure Bournemouth is going to be playing in Europe as well. So we'll see. But I have them 8-14. Next, we have Arsenal. We've seen what they did against City. Now, the thing is, I would say about Arsenal, I said this in the last one, they have to deal with guys coming back. I don't know when to expect Rice to come back. Saka, I don't know when to expect to come back. Saliba, that's the big one. But the thing is, if you talking about somebody defensively being out, they had pretty much a large stint without Saliba last year. They had a large stint without Gabriel last year. And they really weathered that storm pretty much all year. So I don't think that matters too much. I will say if they're not going to be as tough to play against next year, because last year they pretty much set up to be the hardest team to beat. But they also didn't set up to easily get wins. That gave them more of a likelihood to get draws in certain games than losses, is what I would say. If they're going to be a little bit more positive in their style of play, that could make them a little bit more open. So we'll see, especially if they're dealing with injuries out the back. But I'm going to say for now, still, until further notice, I thought it's a couple teams I thought can challenge them. So I'll say that. But I'm going to say for now, Arsenal is still champions until further notice. And then next we have Aston Villa. Aston Villa lost, in my opinion, their two best players in Tielemans and Morgan Rogers. I feel like I like Tielemans. I'm not that crazy about Tielemans. I think Tielemans, he was very good last year for them. I was more impressed by Tielemans at the World Cup because he was very good for Belgium. He was the best player for Belgium in my opinion. But when it comes to Morgan Rogers, I just feel like Morgan Rogers is extremely underrated. When people was having a conversation about Bellingham and Morgan Rogers before, that was a real genuine conversation. I thought that, in my opinion, the best way to end that conversation was just put Morgan Rogers off the left and Bellingham down the middle, especially going to play with Kane. I thought Kane would actually bring the world-class level that Bellingham should play to out of him, where he hasn't really played like that for Madrid in the last two seasons. And I've talked about it in other videos. But I do think Morgan Rogers is kind of underrated for whatever reason. Even by Prem fans, where a lot of times Prem fans kind of overrate players. But I do think they're actually interested in terms of their recruitment, in terms of what they're trying to do. They have their own health issues as well. I think right now, I think last year what happened for a lot of those mid-table to escaping relegation teams, a lot of those teams improved and they were really tough to beat if you were in the big six. So that's why a lot of games were droppable last year. Any given week, it was a droppable game, in my opinion, unless you were playing Wolves to a certain extent. But even then, it kind of was games dropped by City and Arsenal when it came to the title race. But Aston Villa, I think they probably got worse. But I do like that striker that I seen in that PSG game in terms of how he would fit in the league. I don't think he's the craziest tech, but in terms of profile, he's pretty interesting. I'm going to say for now, until further notice somebody knock them off their pedestal, I'm going to say 7. Then we have Brentford. Brentford, this is one of those teams I'm saying that's very tough to play. And I don't think this is a team that got worse. If anything, they got better. I would say, honestly, this is a team that could fight and take Aston Villa's spot in that top 7. But for now, I'm going to put them in mid-table. Brighton, I believe, is playing in Europe this year. I don't think that matters too much because they're in the lowest level. They're playing Conference League. So I don't think that's that deep for them. And I think they actually have the squad depth to even do that for that level, you know? So I would probably predict right now. I don't know who all in Conference League, but usually Prem kind of controls Europa League and Conference League. Now, I'm going to say this. If Serie A can't win Europa League with AC Milan and Juve in the Europa League, that's pretty bad. That's a pretty big indictment on Serie A. I won't lie. But I do expect Brighton to still be in this mid-table realm. Probably over Bournemouth for now. And I do think that's just a mid-table team. I think all these teams in mid-table are just mid-table levels right now. Chelsea. Now, I'm going to keep it being. After watching City, I'm not trying to be reactionary. Last time I did this, I was like, Rodri is probably on the out. He wasn't definitively on the out. Rodri is now at Barcelona. So that's a completely different conversation. I thought that Elliot Anderson and Rodri was going to be a very good fit together. I thought Rodri was going to allow Elliot Anderson to play with the freedom that he wants to do in terms of that midfield. But he would also, it would fit better for Rodri because Bernardo Silva would be all over the pitch. He wouldn't really be in that midfield. He wouldn't be helping around in the midfield. He'd be helping at fullback. He'd be helping at the wingers and all that type of stuff. He'd just be all over the pitch so that when City lost the ball, that was a big problem. And Rodri was kind of being left by himself. Now, I will say this. I do think Chelsea has the best manager in the league. I'm not going to hate on Arteta. I just think of Xabi Alonso that highly. I think Xabi Alonso is one of the five best managers in the world. I really respect him a lot. I think that he is very, very good. I think what he was able to do to get Morgan Rogers and Cole Palmer as his 2-10s, I think that can work very well. I think they can also play out wide as wingers. I think they can also have Cole Palmer as a 10, and then, you know, Morgan Rogers playing off the left, and then you have Esteval off the right, and then you have João Pedro, who has, I don't know how, going into the league last year, he was underrated. I think he's proven himself more, but still somehow he's underrated. He didn't even get in the Brazil team. So I think that they could arguably, I would say right now, the way it looks to me, I think they have the best front 3, and if they even do the other 4, they have the best attack in the league right now. Now, there's things that can change when you think about Barcola. What's going to happen with him? I don't think that would be enough, though, for me to say that they're over Chelsea. And I'm saying this with Cole Palmer, I don't think is world-class level this last year. I don't believe he was. Esteval, I think he can be overrated a little bit sometimes. I don't think he's the level of what people sometimes say he is. But I do think if we talk about comparing that to, like, Haaland does a lot of heavy lifting for City, where that could probably put it in the conversation. But Doku, I do think out and out wingers, he probably is the best out and out winger in the league. Semenyo, I don't look at him as a creative winger. I think of him as like more of another guy that can pop up with goals for City, because if Haaland's not scoring on that team, it's very questionable who's scoring on City. So, and I think a big question mark with City is their biggest question mark is Foden and Cherki. They can't play together because Cherki is not a right winger, and Foden, he's not as good at right wing as he is in the 10. But they could do something similar to what Chelsea does with Morgan Rogers off the left and Cole Palmer down the middle. You know, City could do something similar. I'm going to say this. I think Chelsea, right now, if I was to bet on it, it's tough, though, because, like I said, I haven't talked about anything in that midfield. Now, it looks like they're keeping Enzo. So, if you're keeping Enzo, it makes a lot more sense to sell Santos. If you sell Santos and Enzo, maybe you go get Adam Wharton, but then you would need to get another guy. I still think they need to get another midfielder, to be honest. Okay. I think that their questions are going to be those wing backs in that back, the entire back. The wing backs, the center backs, the goalkeeper. That's their biggest question marks for me. But I think the manager, I think they have goals in that team. So I think that they're going to be in the Champions League. Right now, it probably is safer to put City because Haaland, he's so inevitable. It's tough. And I do think that they're trying to play possession. That's not what Enzo did with Chelsea in the big games, what made them so scary. When they played big games, they really had the right tactics for every big team they played, whether it was Barcelona, whether it was Arsenal, whether it was PSG. When Enzo was managing Liverpool, City, going against any of those teams, they pretty much came to play, and they were set up very well to play against those teams. I didn't see that versus Arsenal. It really felt like they were just forcing a style of play, to try to play that Pep style of play. I don't think that's really beneficial to anybody. Because their best player, I don't think Haaland, that doesn't benefit Haaland his best. And I think Donnarumma, that doesn't benefit them. So we'll see. I'm going to say for now, I'm going to go second for Chelsea because I do think City has stuff to figure out. And if they're forcing things, I'm going to say second to Chelsea. Coventry, I think relegation. What order is it? I have no clue. I just think relegation, personally. Crystal Palace, losing Glasner, relegation could be in play. I just don't know or believe too much into any of these teams coming up. That's what I'll say. I don't believe in them too much coming up. So, I'm going to say Crystal Palace for now is escaping relegation. I do like some of the purchases that they've had, but losing Glasner is a very good pickup. But I will say they could be mid-table. I just don't know enough about the manager that's replacing them. That's what I'll say. I'm not going to put them in relegation, though. Everton, I'm not the biggest on Everton, but they're probably mid-table. I'll probably put Everton for now because I have the same question marks for Bournemouth as I have with Crystal Palace. I just think Areola is one of the best managers in the world. I think Glasner was one of the best managers in the Prem. I don't think he was one of the best managers in the world like Areola was. Like, if I was AC Milan and I had the option of either, I would have chose Areola. Liverpool, Areola. You know? Like, for any pretty much team, I would have just chose Areola. It's just what it was for me. Everton, I'm going to probably say here, though. I'm going to probably put them over Bournemouth. I think their defense, I think their goalkeeper is pretty straight. We'll figure out. We'll see what else they got going on, but I don't have too much belief in that team. I'm going to say mid-table. Fulham. Fulham should be a pretty fun team. I can see Fulham being kind of like the new Bournemouth, getting some of these guys. Now, I will say this. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes bad for Fulham. I want to say Areola, but it's Arabolt. The previous Madrid manager used to play for Madrid, fullback. I'll say this. In the CL, he was very good. In the league, in the cups that he played within the league, he was bad. He was really bad for Madrid. Would that be a big problem for Fulham, though? And I will say, if you really paid attention, he was very much about getting some of those youth players to play more for Madrid. He's bringing some of those youth players to play for Fulham. Now, I'll say this. Some of them youth players were not good at all. At all. But was it more so because they weren't nowhere near Madrid's level? Or were they just not good? I'm not 100% sure, to be honest. Because I feel like if you're good, you're good. They were bad. And even the main midfielder that they be gassing, I didn't like him either. I'm going to be honest. When I watched him, I ain't like him at all. For them. But I am a Barcelona fan, so maybe it's biased, but I ain't really see much out. Now, Garcia, I think he's shown flashes so many times. I think when he's got the chance in the Club World Cup, when he got the chance in the league, he was very good. You could even make an argument in the league, they were more consistent with him than with Mbappe that second half of the season once Xabi Alonso got fired. But there was nothing really consistent about that team in general once Xabi Alonso got fired. which is why I think that conversation about him getting fired is very, very much overblown. I think Fulham could go a couple of different ways. I could see him really going over there and actually doing a very good job. Spanish manager, that's kind of the thing right now. Trying to play possession football, but he wants to be a little bit more attacking, I feel like. A little bit more direct. We'll see. I think he was like the youth manager too for Madrid, and he was doing very good there. And I think when he went to really just be the manager of Madrid, he was just making so many excuses for the players. He was taking all the blame. I think it was just more so just doing that more than tactics. And we seen all the conversations about the Madrid players hating the fact that Xabi Alonso was so tactical based and was actually trying to get them to prepare for games and stuff like that. Like, that's crazy to me. So I'm gonna say Fulham. I'm gonna go out on a limb. I'm gonna say they go here. All that being said, I can see it going very bad where even they could get to that escaping relegation. I can see it going anywhere from as high as here or as low as this. But I'm gonna say here for now. Hull City, I think that's the relegation. They barely came up. I don't think that really matters too much about if they like the placement, to be honest, because we've seen that with Sunderland. Sunderland barely came up. They made it through the playoffs, but Sunderland invested very well. We'll see with Hull City. Ipswich, I think this is a team, if I was to bet on anybody, if I was counting on anybody that came up to make it out, it would probably be Ipswich. For now, I think that they are also relegation for me. I think for now, they are also relegation. I don't know too much about the order. I probably have the most faith in Ipswich. I know a lot of Prem fans believe in Coventry City because of the manager, but I probably believe more in Ipswich for now. And yeah. Next, we have Leeds. Now, Leeds is the team that's... Now, all the teams that came up last year, I know a lot of people going to believe in Sunderland. I think Leeds is the team to believe in. I think Leeds is going to be much improved from last year. I think that they're not going to just be trying to stay in the league. I think this is a team that's going to be improving and trying to get up the tiers. Last year, they was in that escape and relegation tier. I think this year, they're going to be getting in that mid-table tier. And I honestly believe in them more than any of these teams in mid-table outside of Brighton and Brentford. I have less questions. I like some of the signings. I think James Trafford is a huge signing for them. I think that's a really great signing. I think that he was one of the best. I think that if he would have played the full year, for me, he would have been a top 3 goalkeeper in the league for them, for the league. I think it would have been Raya, Donnarumma, then him. I think the fact that it was debatable for a lot of City fans between him in terms of the fit, and this is what I'll say. Based off, if you want to play possession, it makes no sense for them to stay with Donnarumma and not keep James Trafford. And I see a lot of City fans saying that he was questionable to start the season. No, he wasn't. The question was when he had the game against Spurs and he had the mistake against Spurs, that was the questionable. He wasn't questionable before that game. Before that game, he was perfectly fine. That was the game, and then they reacted and they went and got Donnarumma. I don't think you regret that because Donnarumma was arguably the best goalkeeper in the world at the time. He was coming off a ridiculous season with PSG. But we don't fake it like Trafford was terrible before the Spurs game. That's just stupid. But, okay. Yeah, I got Leeds there. I think that they're going to be very, very solid in the league. I believe in them a little bit more. I can see them and Fulham being swapped. I have my questions with Everton, especially in their attack, in their midfield, personally. And then Bournemouth, I think they actually have a pretty good team. I won't lie. Bournemouth actually has a pretty good team. So, honestly, I'm going to put Bournemouth over Everton. I probably put Bournemouth over Fulham, too. I probably put Bournemouth over Leeds. I'm low-key kind of underrating Bournemouth. Bournemouth actually have a very good team. If they keep Scott, Krupi, they got Alvaro. I'm going to be honest. Bournemouth actually have a pretty good team, bro. I'm not going to lie. Like, they still kept their fullbacks. Like, I'll be honest. Bournemouth actually have a pretty underrated team. I'm pretty sure they're bringing back Jimenez that was at Fiorentina. I like him a lot. Bournemouth actually have a really good recruitment. Like, people talk about Brighton. I would actually argue Bournemouth these last couple years have even better recruitment than Brighton. Brighton kind of followed off a little bit after a couple of those guys went to Chelsea, to be honest. They haven't really had that crazy guy recently, in my opinion, like they usually would. But they may have got that actually this year with going Van Heck for bro that came from Bundesliga that was loaned out by Spurs. So we'll see. I think he's gonna actually fit the Prem, but he's not that pacey. But he's gonna be very good on set pieces, and the Prem loves set pieces. But maybe they go away from that this year. Then we get into some bigger teams. Liverpool. I'm gonna say this. Last time I did this, they had some pretty big questions. I like this is what I say. Jeremy Jacquet, I like him. I like that purchase a lot. I like that. Now we recently seen him play. He looked very good. But I think Araujo is going to be the starter, and I think Araujo is going to be very, very, very good for Liverpool. I think Araujo is very, very underrated at this point. I think Araujo, his biggest flaws were very much just a problem for his fit in the system for Barcelona. Barcelona is a system where your center backs are going to be in situations where they're going to be prone to mistakes. And the guys that are less prone to mistakes are going to be the guys that flourish in that system. A guy like Araujo that's going to be put in space way more than he probably should, be put in situations where he's going to have to make split decisions way more than he probably should. That's going to be a big problem for him. You put him next to VVD, I don't think that's going to be as big of a problem for him. I think he's going to actually be really good for them. And even if he's not, again, I think he's going to be a lot better for Liverpool than he was with Barca just due to fit. But I also do believe, even if he's not good, Jeremy Jacquet is right there. Like, he's right there. He's ready to play. And he might even be more ready and better than Araujo already. But I think Araujo has kind of just become underrated because of Flick's system defensively just don't fit him. So we'll see. And I think Areola, you think about the center backs that come in and out of Bournemouth these last 2 years, Areola, to be able to get those guys in with Zambarni and Dean Huijsen, both of those guys were really bad for PSG and Madrid last year. And then he gets in Senesi. Senesi was very good for Bournemouth. I think he's a guy that's flexible in the way he can play and the center backs he can use. And he's going to have VVD, who's the best center back he's had of these last 3 years. I think Araujo, you could put in that conversation. Jeremy Jacquet, you could put in terms of potential, you could put in that conversation with Dean Huijsen. I think it's going to be very, very good. Leone, I think he's going to be very good center back wise. Fullbacks is where it does become a question. I think Kirk is going to be better, but that right back situation is very interesting to me. Midfield, McAllister, question marks in my opinion. Gravenberch should be good with them. I think he's going to be a good fit. I think Szoboszlai is a good fit. Wirtz, we'll see what he does with this system, to be honest. He's going to be a guy that plays behind a striker. If you watch them a lot, that's kind of what Krupi did a lot. Krupi didn't really play striker as much as people think. He played behind the striker a lot. And the way that he uses wingers, I think if they do get a Barcola, that's going to be very, very, very amazing fit. This is a team manager that could be a lot better than they are right now. Barcola is a big deal. I don't know what happens first. Do they sell Gakpo or do they buy Barcola? But I do think regardless of getting Barcola, if they sell Gakpo, they need another winger, in my opinion. I think they need another midfielder, in my opinion. I think they need another right back, in my opinion. So they have question marks and holes that they still need to fit. Isak, I think, should be a lot better this year as well. I'm going to say Liverpool for now, top 4. Then we have City. So many question marks for City for me. I think if they're going to play possession, that's very bad. I don't like that. You're not Pep. Don't force that. Don't force a style of play just because you want to copy Pep. I think that's really bad. I think what they should do, they should play to the players' benefits and play based off tactically and matchups. And that's what Enzo was very good when he played against the bigger teams. And I do think he has goals in his team when you think about Haaland, when they play those smaller teams that he can be able to take advantage of. So I think that City this year, if they really just play a flexible style of play, game to game, I think this is a team that should get second. And they could fight for the league. But if they're going to force possession, I can see them going as low as 5 or 4. I probably would say 4. For now, I probably would say 4. I think it's in between 4. So I'm going to say, because I'm in between on them, because I think they could go as high as 2nd, I think they could go as high as low as 4. I'm going to just bet on Xabi Alonso. I just believe in him enough to put him there because, as I said, I think he's top 5 in the world. I like Enzo Maresca. I like his time with Chelsea. I think he's done a lot. I think they got drastically worse when he left. But I also like Areola. Do I think he's a better manager than Areola? I don't know. And I don't think Liverpool is forcing a style of play on Areola. I think Areola has freedom to do what he wants. I think Enzo, he's kind of forcing that Pep style of play that he shouldn't really do. And I think that could be the difference between City fighting for a title and just fighting between some of the other big six teams. Because we have another one, and Man United. Now, Man United, in my opinion, is a team that could be one of those big six teams, in my opinion, that could actually fall down. It seems like, to me, this is what's happening. And I do think the hate for Amorim is just ridiculous, in my opinion, for United people. I do think if we talk about that first season, they just did not care about the league. And that is a damning thing for United. I think for sure. You should hate that. To lose in the final to Spurs, you should hate that. What they did in the league last year, I think that completely overhated. Before Bruno got injured, they were literally fighting for a top 4 position already. Bruno gets injured, they fall to like 5, I believe. But you also got to think about AFCON. So you have Bruno out, you have Ahmad going to AFCON, and you have Mbeumo gone. That was 3 of your best attackers at that time. Because Cunha, before Amorim left, was not consistent at all. Seska wasn't really that great before he left either. So it's just that. Now, the fact that a lot of these players did get better post Amorim, you gotta give a lot of credit to the new manager. I do think Carrick for United is better. I think he's surely better, clearly better. He was the number one. They were the number 1 team post transition. The thing is, they had already, like I said, I only talk about the league with Amorim. Grimsby Town, you can hate Amorim for that for sure. The next one, that wasn't even Amorim. That was Amorim or Carrick. That was who was that? Bruh. It was the interim coach. That's all I know. It was a player that he got sons that play for the team. I keep forgetting his name, but yeah, they pretty much played the interim coach, and they played against the backups for Brighton, which is terrible. They lost that game. They played their full starting lineup against that. Like, the crazy thing is, as soon as Amorim got fired, a lot of these guys were back ready to play. I'm not gonna lie, that was pretty funny. I can't lie, that was pretty petty. But yeah, that team, that's what I say. Now, this is what I say. Michael Carrick, once he took over, I think he wasn't caring too much about style of play. I think he was just going for results and results only. The thing with Amorim, he was mainly trying to get a style of play, but then he was doing results. And you seen it kind of towards the end. He started to push results up, but he was still trying to develop a style of play. He just couldn't play the style of play he wanted, and he couldn't get results. But I think the season, he was still top 5, which is kind of, I don't know. But the thing is, what I'm saying with Carrick is, it seems like he's now trying to instill a style of play. And this is where it always seems to go wrong with United. I feel like usually when they have an interim that does good, it's really because they're focusing all on results. And then that next season, they try to get guys in, they don't really get backed. And then when they don't get backed, they also still try to instill that style of play while also doing results instead of just focusing on results, like which kind of got them the security to stay another year, and it kind of falls apart. So we'll see. I do think United seem like they're better on the ball now, but I will say, when they lose the ball, it's gonna be problems. It's gonna be problems. I don't think they're good defensively at all. I think their counter defense is really bad, and I think their attack is kind of overrated personally. I don't really believe in any wingers too much. I don't really believe in any strikers too much. Bruno, I believe in, but he don't really fit that midfield, and a lot of their problems in the midfield kind of do come from Bruno, but a lot of their problems in the midfield kind of comes from them not having no legs. But I do think they play pretty well possession. But Bruno is such a risk. He's a huge risk taker. And if you're going to play possession, that's not really the greatest thing to have, I would say. But Bruno is clearly the best player on their team. So, we'll see. I still think they get 5 or 6. I probably would say 6 right now, though, if I'm honest. Then next, we have Newcastle. Now, if I was saying there's a team that I personally support the most in the Prem, it definitely is Newcastle. I really like their style of play under Eddie Howe. I liked a lot of the players that they have with Isaac. Very enjoyable. Midfield, very, very good. One of the more underrated midfielders for years. in the Prem. They just had a very good style of play. They played against the big teams. You've seen when they played in Europe, they played very well. They just had a very, very entertaining style of play. What I'll say for Newcastle is, I think last year they still had a pretty entertaining style of play. They just choked so many results. So many games. You got the game against Chelsea where Voltamade was ridiculous to start that game. They literally let them tie the game. You have the result against Arsenal where Arsenal were down and they let them come back and tie it, and not just tie it but win that game. They just had so many games that they choked. You think about the game against Liverpool. You think it's so many results that they just choked. They just choked. And then you think about what's happened in this transfer window where they lost so many important players. And you think about Bruno G, they lost to Nali. Now I say this. A lot of people are low-key tripping a little too much on Bruno G being stamped a better player than Tonali. I'm going to be honest. I don't know if that's 100% true. I think they fit very well together. I'm not 100% sure he stamped a better player than Tonali. I don't know if that's true. I think they're the same tier. Bruno G had a better season than Tonali for sure last year. Or is he a better player? I don't know about that. I don't know if I can go that far. But I do think this opens up opportunities for guys like Lewis Miley, who has shown so many times that he can step in and play very well in that midfield. Now, the other guy they brought in, Torre, looks very good. Sturr, he looks very good. And both of those guys are very young. So maybe they're going for more of the potential approach. When you think about teams like Brighton, teams like Bournemouth have kind of started to do. So maybe they kind of starting to do that. They've kind of got turned down. People talk about them a lot because a lot of the big six teams, I don't know, they have this disdain for them. Newcastle always go ahead at home field advantage. That very, 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 very great atmosphere. So I think that's a big dynamic for them. I don't think they go into that escape and relegation. I still think they have a really good team. I think they recruited very well, even with all the guys that they lost. I think last year people talk about they spent so badly. I don't think you can say that's talent ID though. Think about all the guys that they got turned down for. They got turned down for Ekitike. They wanted him. They wanted Sesko. I don't think Sesko would have been I don't think that's as big of a deal. If Ekitike would have been a perfect replacement for Isak. You could even argue now that he's better than Isak. That's how good of a purchase that would have been. They were the first team in for Ekitike. They was in on him way before Liverpool. So they just couldn't get it done. They played around. So I just think it's interesting. I think Torre, he could go in this year and be better than what Gordon was in the league last year. I don't think Gordon was the greatest in the league. I think Gordon was ridiculous in the UCL. But in the league, no. I think that tie against Barcelona is a lot better if they have healthy fullbacks and healthy Gordon. That'd be a lot better. If you look at the score in aggregate, it was ridiculous. I think it was 9-2. You know? And I think Newcastle actually has the perfect style of play to beat a team, to upset a team, a big team. So I do think this is a team that can still pull off upsets. Now, I'm gonna be honest. No more Eddie Howe. That's a big question for me. What does Jasso got going on? I heard he has a good resume. I heard he has a good style of play. I'm very entertained to see what he's going to look like. I've seen some preseason, but that's preseason. Can't read too much into that. If I was reading too much into that, I would have talked about the United AC Milan game. Very hilarious game. But it's preseason at the end of the day. Can't read too much into that. Even though I do think a lot of United fans was taking that crazy serious. But you can't read too much into it. I'm gonna say Newcastle for now. I don't think I can put them over Bournemouth. I think Bournemouth have a really good team. I think Newcastle is in that Fulham, Everton, Crystal Palace area. I just got more belief in Newcastle. May got a little bit of bias as well. But hold on. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Okay. Somebody for sure has to go down. For sure. Let's get into it. Forest. I think Forest is going to be... I honestly think Forest and Aston Villa is the fight. Forest, Aston Villa, and Brentford and Bournemouth. I'm going to actually lower Brighton. Especially with them playing Europe. Brentford not having Europe is a big deal. I think that's kind of a big deal. Because they already was around there, I believe. I think they missed out on Europe. And I think that's going to really help them be in that Conference League fight. In my opinion. They actually may have a good start to the season too. I don't think they had too many players go to the World Cup either. So that could be interesting. But Forest have actually, they've had a pretty good summer. They did lose Elliot Anderson, who was debatably their best player, but they still kept Morgan Gibbs White. If you remember the end of the season, he had their highest peak of any player on their team. I love the Diamande transfer. I heard there were some question marks about if that actually finalized or not, but if it is, I love that transfer for them. I think Glasner going there is a huge deal for them. Could he get fired? I wouldn't be surprised with that owner, but I love that Diamande pickup. I think that Forest is actually just very ambitious, but I wouldn't be surprised because of the fact that the manager could get fired. I'ma actually say they're under Bournemouth to be safe, and I'm a lower Everton. I think Everton probably is a little bit more stamped than Fulham. I have more question marks for Fulham than Everton. I think Everton is just a mid-table team. Everton is just a mid-table team, in my opinion. I think Fulham losing Marco Silva, one of the more underrated managers in the league. I try to remember how to say his name, but I'm gonna just say Madrid's previous manager. I think it's kind of interesting. Sunderland, I think Sunderland is another team that's going to be in that skip of relegation. I think this is a team that could fall off this year. I think that it's not really anything that really pops out to me for them that really tells me that they can do that again. I think them playing in the Europa League is also a big problem for them too. I believe are they in Europa League or Conference? No, they're not in Conference League because that's Brighton. Yeah, they're in Europa League. So yeah, I think Sunderland, bro, I'm not too high on them this year, man. I don't think they really upgraded, to be honest. I think they probably do have around the same team, but I don't think their team was as good as where they placed anyway last year. Personally, I don't. I think a lot of the Big Six teams improved. Pretty much every Big Six team improved this year except for City, in my opinion. And I think Aston Villa got a little bit worse, you could say. Brentford is around the same. Bournemouth got worse, losing their manager. Forest is going to probably be around the same, if not worse, or a little bit better. It kind of goes down to, is Glasner that big of a deal, or is losing Elliot Anderson that big of a deal? I think Leeds is going to be better. Newcastle, they didn't have a good season anyway last year in the league, so I don't know what to really think of them. But if you know Newcastle, when they're in UCL, they have a down year. When they're out of it, they have a very surprisingly good year. So I'm not going to go too low on them. Everton, I'm not the highest on Everton. I think Sunderland could be better than Everton, though. I probably believe in Sunderland a little bit more than Everton because of what they did last year. Man, I don't know, bro. I don't know. Also, like some of the stuff that Crystal Palace did in this transfer window. I haven't seen too much of Sunderland, though. I haven't seen too much news of Sunderland. For now, I'm going to personally put Sunderland 17th. I could see them having a huge drop-off, personally. I could see that. I think some teams could figure them out from last year. I think it could just be, I think if that manager gets fired, especially, I could see it. I could see it get into relegation battle with like a Coventry City or Ipswich. I could see that being the team going down. Then we have Spurs. I think Spurs are going to be the team that has the biggest upgrade. They went 17th. Obviously, it's going to be hard for them to not have a huge upgrade with the money that they spent on the players, the quality they signed. Again, like I said with Tonali, I think Tonali is the same tier as Bruno G. If you want to say Bruno G is better, I'm not mad at it. I do think it's crazy to say he clears. I think they're a relative, bro. I think that they're very relative. I think entering last year, it was more of an opinion. It was starting to grow as the opinion that Bruno G is the better player. But now it's like he's just for sure better. I think he had a better season for sure this past year. Is he a better player? I don't know, man. I think Tonali made a lot of sacrifices in that midfield to allow guys to play the way that they wanted to play. And I do think Eddie Howe just got a lot of stuff wrong last year, man, if I'm honest. I'm going to say this, though. I think defensively they had a great window. Goalkeeper is still a question mark for me, though. Midfield, huge window for them. I think if one of those guys do go down, though, you kind of back to square one, but you haven't really sold any of your other young midfielders that they were saying you were going to sell. So I do think that's a positive until further notice, though. But I do think the thing is for Spurs, which is really tough for me to go too crazy on them, is because they have more stability out the back, more stability in the midfield, but in attack, you know. And you could really make a case that losing Romero and getting some of the guys they got at center back, is that really an improvement? I think because of the depth and the injuries that they dealt with, and the fact that Romero didn't even end the season for them, I would say yes. I would say yes. But I do think the attack is the big question. But if they can get Kulusevski and Madison, that is enough for me, even if they don't get another attacker. Savinho, I'm higher on Savinho than a lot of people, I think. So I'm not going to go too crazy on him. I think Spurs, personally, the difference between them, I was going to say they get 5th. The difference between them getting 5th and 6th is them getting attackers. If they would have got a Krupi, I would have been thoroughly moved. I may even had them in that race for that top 4 race to get 4th and take somebody out of there. But for now, I'm going to say 6th. And I think they just improved enough. The Zerbi, I think they're going to be 6th, personally. That's what I got. And that is my Prem table for the upcoming season.
Tell them to bring me my money. Yeah!